In order to thrive in private practice, it's important that we know how to set expectations. What we really anticipate and expect as far as performance goes for really everybody in the organization. But we're going to look at it from the clinical perspective. What we're running up against is kind of unprecedented when it comes to private practice in terms of the shrinkage of available clinicians to hire. Every one of my clients is looking for people. I'm sure you're looking for people. And then they want more. Who doesn't want more? I want more. You want more? I bet you do. So does your staff. So you have to establish what is meeting or exceeding expectations by establishing what those expectations are and evaluating performance based on that. So what I want to get into in this particular presentation is several things that you can do to increase your patient visit volume working with your clinical team to help make this come about. It's simple steps. We'll work our way through it. The very first thing is we do have to establish the benchmarks that evaluate the quantity of care being delivered, that also evaluate the quality of the care being delivered, and also the financial viability of the care being delivered. Are we actually billing appropriately? Would be one way to look at the third part. Quantity, quality of those benchmarks, and the economic viability of your benchmarks. So when we establish the benchmarks, we might look at the first one being the arrival rate, not just your clinic arrival rate, but each clinician's arrival rate. Because if you want to evaluate your clinicians against established benchmarks, you got to evaluate them against what you expect. So arrival rate would be one. Perhaps productivity. So when we're establishing benchmarks, we might have something of patient visits per week or patient visits per hour as a productivity benchmark. We would also want to look at the arrival rate. What is the expectation of arrival rate for your practice? Is it 95%? Is it 93%? I hope it's at least 92%. But what is the expectation in terms of arrival rate? So I can evaluate one clinician against another clinician based on the arrival rate and their general productivity of patient visits. Also might want to look at the average patient frequency. How often does patients come into the clinic by clinician? So that might be, and I would strongly recommend, one of your benchmarks. Your average patient frequency should be at least 2.0. And it's not easy to get to 2.0. It'll take a little bit of work, but you can do it and many have. You also want to look at efficiency. That would be like a percentage of a full schedule. Ideally, we're running around 95% of the time the slots are filled. So that's going to be impacted adversely if you have a high cancellation rate, because then you're going to have open slots that you're not able to fill. So what is the clinical efficiency? 95%. You also might want to look at how often they're charging therapeutic exercise and manual therapy, which tend to be the two lowest paying codes. You just want to see are we just basically doing those codes? And many times I find that's the case. And if you just do a little math, it's worth doing the research. You probably would make more per visit if you coded Therac, Neuro. That could possibly do a far better job on your bottom line, but you can't code something you're not doing. So many times I think patients are actually doing therapeutic activities instead of their charging the TheraX. As a manager, as an owner, or even your finance directors should be looking over those things. So we look at like benchmarks, establishing benchmarks. Here we'll rattle them off again, okay? Patient visits, arrival rate, visits to discharge, average patient frequency, skilled units per visit, perhaps, clinical efficiency, and the percentage of the time they charge therapeutic exercise and manual therapy. Ideally, we want that number to be below 50%. Once you've figured out what you'd like those benchmarks to be, and don't look at those benchmarks based on what they are, put them down for what you would like them to be, what you think a reasonable, hardworking A-team kind of staff member could do. Now, at that time, it might be by itself a nice water dip. I've been to practices that run 1.3 average patient frequency, but when you ask them how often patients come in, they say 2 to 3 times a week. Like, you have no clue. It's 1.3. And you see like your whole idea of what you were delivering in your practice begin to crumble before your eyes because we're not paying attention to these metrics. So we may not be delivering quality care in a fiscally responsible manner. So once we have all that data together, we have benchmarks, and we've evaluated every single clinician against those benchmarks. Maybe we look at a year, maybe we look at a quarter, but we look at a period of time. Everyone's evaluated with the same metrics, and then you evaluate your clinicians based on them. Then it's time to have the talk. What is the talk? The talk is a productivity talk. Everybody wants to make more money. The only way to make more money is to make more money. And that means them, and that means you as the owner. So only way that you can pay your staff more is they have to earn more. I know that's not really hard math, but sometimes it escapes people. If you tolerate mediocrity, do not be surprised when it happens. Many times we just tolerate it, or I don't know how to get the guys on board. How do I get the guys on board? And what do I say to these guys? And all this kind of stuff. And I understand that it can be very hard. And I've been there. I definitely know what it's like. But if you don't toughen up to the financial talk with your clinicians, you might lose them. We want people who can earn more money because then we can keep them. But we can't pay them more if we don't make sure that they're managing their schedule smartly. smartly. So I'm going to get into several things that could be done in this area. But first things first, we can't tolerate mediocrity. So here are the assumptions I'd like to make: that you only have 18 players on your team, but especially your clinicians, they're all A team. And what is an A team? We want to define that a little bit more in this particular talk. We want to have clinicians who will take full responsibility for their productivity, not like, well, I don't know what happened. I don't know where he is. I don't know why he disappeared off my schedule. They take complete ownership of the patient's care. They want to take an active role in helping the company reach its goals because they know that really is the only way they're going to reach their own. So those are just basic assumptions. So it's about leveraging your A team. Here's a fun fact, business owner. All change is met with resistance. All change, 100%, is met with resistance. It could be an eye roll, not doing that. Hey, you got it, boss, but don't do it. It's always met with resistance. Just expect it. Don't be ready to fight, and don't be surprised when it happens, because all change is met with it. If you take on that point of view, I mean, it's not the military, where they go, yes, sir, and no, sir. It's their employees. They quit. So you need to recognize that you're going to get pushed back. It could be a little bit. It could be a lot. Just don't roll over. Don't go too aggressive, but we want to move this needle. Understand you're going to have pushback. We want to move the needle, because if you keep doing what you're doing, you keep getting what you've got. So now I want to define the A team, the B team, and the C team players. Here's your C team. Now, some people think this is the A team. They deliver excellent patient care and they have happy patients. If that's all they really put out for you, they are a C team player. A B team player is a little bit better. They have the traits of the C team. They have happy patients and they deliver excellent care, but they also have competent documentation and the knowledgeable application of proper coding so they can deliver fiscally responsible care. So the B team is competent on documentation and they smartly code. Now, your A team player. The A team player meets or exceeds the productivity standards. They keep track of their patients and sees that they complete their plan of care. They don't let them drift off. And they create a patient for life through their interaction and relationship, and they ask for and they get referrals. That's an A team. So you want to look at that. Do I have a C team where they basically do great care and have happy patients? Do I have a B team who has great care and happy patients, but also documents appropriately and knows how to bill? Or do I have an A team player who does know how to do what I've just mentioned, but also exceeds productivity standards, all the benchmarks, and keeps track of their patients so that they don't evaporate from their schedule, and they work to create a patient for life who want to come back and see that same therapist again, or send their friends and family. So now I want to share some ways in which you can increase your patient volume. The first way to increase your patient visits is with the morning huddle. So the morning huddle requires all of the staff on statistics. They're tracking them day over day, week over week. So the clinical director or the owner will set a target for each staff member for the week. They could set their own, but some kind of a target, whether it's so many visits per week, so many visits per hour. We could start with a target of just patient visit volume, maybe arrival rate. We might set a target for, right? You have a fixed time for the huddle itself, whether that's first thing in the morning or first thing after lunch before the afternoon starts, but it's only one daily huddle. It's very simple. It's about 4 or 5 minutes long. And you ask, are you on target? Look at the first person. Joe, are you on target? He says, yeah. Excellent. You need anything from me? No. Good. Mary, are you on target? No. Okay. Well, do you have a plan for that? Yeah. Okay. I'm going to do this and this and this. Excellent. And you just go through each staff member, real quick, and if they need help, you figure out how to help them. Well, I have a problem with so-and-so's. I can't get them to keep their appointment. Okay. Well, good. Let me see if we can dive in on that at the front desk and we can see if we can help you out. Support them, help them. But it's a morning huddle. And it's like, it keeps everybody's attention on productivity, not like finish out the week and go, had a crappy week. And also by doing it together as a particular group, there's a lot of what we generally like to go into on the morning huddle, but I don't want to take any more time than we need to. But that morning huddle creates what I like to call group internal pressure. So it's like everybody's there. It's very, very quick. Everybody may not be a possibility for you. You go like, how could I possibly do that? You're right. Like, okay, don't look at the barrier, look at the solution. The solution is you want to have the staff members' orientation towards productivity, valuable production. Every time they're not seeing a patient, but ask for $110,000 a year, you have to scratch your head and wonder, how am I going to do it? So you want them to be scratching their head so it's showing that they can earn it. So you want to have group internal pressure to reach weekly targets. And that's your morning huddle. The second thing to increase patient visits is to focus on your missing in action list. Sometimes we just notice that somebody quit coming. We should be paying careful attention each week of who did not show up last week. They should be identified. If you don't do that, you should be doing that, because you either have a patient who doesn't think they need to come back, so you have to handle that, or a patient who's upset, you need to handle that. You could have any number of things. It could be the doctor decided to dismiss them, but it also shows a very large lack of control on your part. So who is missing in action? And in the huddle, say I was one of your therapists, you say, Sean, I got Mary Smith and Bob Jones. They're missing in action from last week. What do you know? Are you going to get them back in? Yeah, I'm going to get them on the phone, blah, 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 right? So we're putting that pressure where we've spent our marketing dollars or did what we did to get those patients to come in and they're on the missing in action list. So if you don't have an MIA list, create one. Very simple. Who didn't show up last week? And then get them on that schedule as a concerted effort from the front desk and from the clinical team. You're missing an action list. The third thing you want to pay attention to drive up your patient visits is your average patient frequency. How often do you see the patient per week on an average? So it's very simple. It should be about 2.0. And one of my clients a long time ago did a study, a large study, to evaluate successful outcomes from physical therapy based on the frequency the patient came in for care, and found when the patient would average about 2.0 visits per week, they had a 96-97% improvement, or they considered a successful discharge, where they felt like their goals were very much met. They're willing to write a testimonial about their wins with the company. But when that number dropped down to 167 or lower, it was like 68% of the time patients had a successful outcome from care. So if you want that abstract, it's pretty old. You can reach out to me, I can get it to you. But that data totally makes sense. If a patient comes once a week, what's your chances of getting them better? What's your chances of them something happening, they miss a week? And then what's the chance that maybe they don't fill that appointment that they did have? So the average patient frequency is a very important thing. So that's the third way in which you can increase your patient visits. You can drive more patient visits by adjusting your average patient frequency than even improving your arrival rate. The fourth way to increase your patient visits is to have the clinician call patients that they like. That's it. Just call patients that they like. So you'd have a list of patients. They would mark all the patients that they like. And whenever they had an open spot in their schedule, they would just call those patients. And there's no script. All you're doing is checking in on them. There is no script. It's just like, I made 13 calls. They would call them, and most of the time you're going to get a machine, but it's like, hey, Bob, it's Sean. Hey, I was just thinking about you. I just wanted to reach out, see how you're doing. I know it's been a little while since you're last in, but if you get a second, give me a shout. Love to hear from you. And you do that however you find your words, but you better make it your own, because you're calling your friends. So you want to deliver that friendly message. If it's a patient you really don't dig, don't call them. Just don't. So, I mean, not every patient I liked, right? Not every patient liked me either. If you're calling somebody because you were thinking about that and you want to check in on them, boy, yeah, I mean, if you had to just call people you didn't like, that would blow. So they only call people that they like, whether it's a case note in the EMR or whatever, but keep some record that it took place. And all you do is you call in and check on them and see how they're doing. If they're like, I was in for my shoulder, last year. I remember, yeah. Well, I've been starting having headaches. Oh, crap, man. When did that start? Well, about 2 weeks ago. Well, why don't I get you on my schedule? I can see you tomorrow at 3. That work for you? Yeah. Great. Let's get you on the schedule. Let's get you in here. Let me pass you up front. I had Bob's your uncle. So phone calls. And many years ago, I had a client in Maine who, lovely guy, and did really well with us, but he had made a decision to kind of throw out some of the marketing stuff we were doing successfully, and decided to hire the weather girl from the local TV station, who was a very nice lady and all, but she changed the marketing structure. She changed it dramatically. She moved it all around and started putting TV ads out, and had health shows. They're on TV, and they thought it was great because their patients were calling going, oh my God, I saw you on TV, right? But most of us are trying not to watch commercials, right? So patients see it, they would capture their attention, they would call, and they go, we're getting such great press. I go, yeah, but your numbers are going into that toilet, right? So as we went in to kind of turn that around, like, he says, I think I might have to go at 2 PTs. I said, I will do that. Because what do? I go, just have them call patients that they like and check in on them. And what? I'm telling you, just have them call patients that they like and check in on them. So that's what they did. They just called patients they liked, they checked in on them, and many of them came back. Or if they didn't come back, then they would have somebody they wanted to refer in. Or then they'd say, all of our checkups are free. They go, oh, they are? All of our checkups are free. So if you wanted to have us take a look at your shoulder or something, just give us a shout, right? Of course, there's probably times where it wouldn't be free. The receptionist could probably harangue that into being a paid appointment, but you want to create that inviting, always reaching in kind of attitude, right? Receptionist is the shepherd, holds on to all the patients when they're active. When they're inactive, that would be your marketing, your promotion, and your calls from your clinicians out to those patients to check in on them, right? So the fourth way, again, to increase your visits is to have a clinician call patients that they like. Now, the fifth way to increase your patient visits is ask your patients, who do you know that needs our help? I know that sounds too simple, but when you have a patient share a very big win, something they could do they couldn't do before, and they're super happy, and they want to name their children after you, and all this type of stuff, after they're done kind of singing your praises and they pause for a second, well, can I ask you a question? They're, sure. Who do you know that needs our help? And then don't say another word. So who do you know that needs our help? And you just look expectantly like they're going to say something. And when you do that, the patient will go, oh, oh, that's interesting you say that, because my brother's been having headaches. I'm kidding. Well, how do we get him in here? And you don't make it too difficult. How do you get him in here? You know what? We can take a quick look at him for free. Really? Yeah. Have them call, tell them you sent them, that kind of thing, right? So you ask patients to refer. I had one lady send me 26 patients, another lady send me like 18 patients. My wife recently, my wife's still practicing. My wife has had one lady representing 65 referrals. I mean, she's a beast. So I shouldn't say that about my wife. She's not a bruised, right? But she's capable in this area. And so she has happy patients who adore her and they refer their friends and family to her. So who do you know that needs our help? Very, very important. Who do you know that needs my help? You know, you could add to it, this is a referral business. We get all of our business from referral. So let me ask you about, who do you know that needs my help? Everybody knows somebody. And if they don't, they go, I don't know anybody. Well, if you do, I want you to know, just have them call and drop your name and I'll take a look at them for free. And then they might start talking. Well, you know, my brother's got a, fine, get him in. I'll take a look at him. And then you got to convert. So that's the fifth way, is to increase your patient visits, is to have happy patients refer to you. Now, the sixth way to increase patient visits is to make yourself accessible to your patients. Now, I recommend that you don't give out your phone number so your patients can text you whenever they want, but you should use some kind of a texting platform that allows you to send a one-off kind of text to patients to check in on them. And then you can ask them during the initial evaluation or somewhere along the way, would it be okay if I sent you a text once in a while just to check in on you? They'll go, yeah, sure, no problem. You let them know that that's their number. If they ever want to reach you, that all they have to do is send you a text. And it's not your personal phone number, but you maintain that relationship. Like, my family doctor is a guy I can text. Now, I'm respectful of his time, so I don't just waste it. But if I really need his 2 cents on something, I will text him and he'll text me back because I don't abuse it. Now, I do have his number, but I would recommend you have a texting platform that I have for my guys, and you can find them. But a texting platform, and just have the therapist be able to hand out their card. If you ever want to send me a text, you can on this. No problem. I can get back to you pretty much anytime. You want to make yourself accessible. How far you want to take that, I don't know, right? Maybe you want to have a couple of relationship visits with the patient before you want to give up that number, because you might have a psycho that wants to text you during the middle of the night and, what are you watching on TV? You might get one of those. So make sure you've got somebody that you really know, really like. You've had a couple of visits with them. Like, hey, would it be okay if I just check in on you once in a while with a text? And we're approaching the end. Yeah, great. You can always reach me. So if you're wondering about something, just reach out to me. At every one of those opportunities, remember, we have 18 people. We have 18 people who are always looking for opportunities to grow the practice. So have them do that. That would be the sixth way to increase your patient visits. Now, seventh way in which you can increase your patient visits is have a QR code, like to a referral page. So imagine you have a business card and on the back you have a QR code. And on that QR code, take a picture, and then that could take them to a referral page. And it said, you were given this card from one of our happy patients. This is to a VIP page for free consultation or pain relief session or whatever you might want to call it. And they enter their name and their details, right? But they say, who gave you the card? Whose name is on the front of the card? If I give it out to all my staff, that card that has Joe's name on it, Joe could get some credit for that referral. And then you say, whose name is on it? It's on a drop-down list. Whose name is on the front of the card? Sean Kirk. And from a drop-down list, you select me as the therapist. And then, do you know the person who gave you the card so we can acknowledge them? Oh, Mary Smith. Great. And they type that in. Good. Now we can reach out to Mary Smith, say, thanks so much for sending Joe Schmo to us. We'll take good care of him. And you get these people with these free consultation cards, and they're putting it out for you. These are your groupies. They're out there, singing your praises, like, oh man, you're limping along. Let me give you the card. I know a guy. This is only for VIP. There's a VIP page. So if you want to know more about how to create that, reach out to me, because I like doing that. But your patients are huge referral sources. In your practice at any given time, 50% of what you're seeing today you've seen before, sometime or another. Patients come back. Even the ones you don't fix come back. So they love you that much. So give them a card. Make it very, very easy. No stickiness involved at all. Take a picture. You can get in there. They'll take a look at you. And then, of course, you can always triage those calls at the front desk to find out, like on a 10 scale, what's your pain like? 14. Like, well, okay, you're going to need a treatment. You're not going to need a free screening or a pain relief session. You need what kind of insurance do you got, Joe? Boom. And we're getting them in the door. The seventh way to increase your patient visits is with a QR code to a patient referral page. The ninth way to increase your patient visits is to ask, when is your next appointment? Before any patient leaves, you say, when's your next appointment, Sean? Right? You don't say, I'll see you Wednesday at 4 o'clock, right? Kind of thing. You never say that. You say, when is your next appointment? It's Wednesday at 4 o'clock. Excellent. If you can get me to remember versus you remembering, you're going to have a higher arrival rate and that will increase your patient visits. So when is your next appointment? So if you're the practice owner and you're listening to this and you think you got this implemented in your practice, you should be hearing it all day long. You should be hearing it all through the clinic. Hey, when's your next appointment? When somebody else is walking by, it's not even my patient, somebody else would say, hey, when's your next appointment, Bob? You always want to push that one. When is your next appointment? It makes a difference. Again, I want you to remember that all change will be met with resistance. And if there's no resistance, there's going to be no change at all. You always have to understand that you're always going to get met with resistance. It's going to actually hit you pretty hard. Don't be shocked by it. But so you take little steps that lead to those types of changes that you want to make within your practice. What I want to talk to you about next is what's for you and your team. What I'd really recommend that you do is I'd really recommend you click on the link and you actually book a coaching call. We can find out areas of your practice where you probably could tighten up just a little bit very easily and improve your bottom line performance, because everybody wants more money, and it ain't just all going to you, as you already know. Your staff want it too. The only way for them to make more money is to make more money. And if you can't have the conversation about productivity, you get to take it out of Hip National Bank. So give me a call. Thanks.